I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. What a terrific, thankful Thursday's edition of Talk Today as we invite you to be a part of our ongoing conversation. We'll start things off talking to our friends over the Jehovah's Witness, and then 1 o'clock for the National Trust. Well, we'll hear what's going on. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village. Convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us, and I hope your day is going just the way you want it. Blessed and beautiful. Well, join us via the phone link. We have Mr. Robert Hendricks as we speak to the upcoming 2021 convention for the Jehovah's Witness. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome. How are you today?
Doing well. Thank you very much for having us.
Always a pleasure, man, and I appreciate Mr. Virus for helping us to facilitate the discussion and your upcoming convention. I would like to talk to you more immediately about it. Powerful by faith, huh? It's a good way to live, good way to lead.
Yeah, it's a powerful theme for the times that we live in. So many of us over the past year and a half, much of our life has been changed so dramatically. And for Jehovah's Witnesses and many others in the world, faith has really gotten us through these very difficult times. And so this theme, Powerful by Faith, is a very timely theme for the world, and it's available to the entire globe.
We want you to share with us too. I mean, especially now as you reference how for 1 minute it looks like things are changing, and then almost in a blink of an eye they change again. So we walk by faith, not by sight, huh?
That's a beautiful scripture, isn't that true? And so without that faith, we couldn't see the other side of this. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? We look at the situation now, which in some areas is actually getting worse. Mm-hmm. And if we didn't have faith, we couldn't see the other side of this. We wouldn't know that there's hope on the other side. And so what really faith helps us to do is not simply have credulity, but really have faith in our Creator, in His ability and desire to get us through this, and also in His Word, the Bible, which has helped us to live by principles that have kept us alive both spiritually and physically.
As I listen to you, I think that it's probably more evident now, more than ever, with all that is happening, whether it's the changing geopolitical landscape, the economic turmoil, the events even in the region here, from the assassination of the French president to, or the Haitian, one of the same over some days, it feels the same, to the unfolding events in Cuba and what's transpiring in Miami, to the unsettled behavior of the English hooligans. All sorts of things are happening. For those who draw alongside the faith and look to the Word for not just to be nurtured and to be guided, but to be girded and grounded. How do you say to the rest that don't lose faith and seek, and you shall actually be not only found but comforted?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you brought those things up because we have to acknowledge that many are suffering from a crisis of faith. We think about crisis of faith in government, crisis of faith in education, crisis of faith in even pharmaceuticals. People are wary about taking vaccines, crisis of faith in science, crisis of faith even in the news media. And people don't know where to get proper information. But here's the thing. The Bible has remained the same for all of its 3,500 years of existence. And those principles are universal. They're eternal. And what we have seen in our lives, I know what I've seen in my life and what many have seen in their lives, is that the application of Bible principles can help us get through. You think about just the Bible principle, be obedient to the superior authorities. That has saved lives. You think about the Jesus admonition to keep your life simple. During this pandemic, we've been forced to be simple. And yet, when you really come down to it, that's really a Christian principle. The Christian principle of sharing with your neighbor and love of neighbor, and how that stops you from doing something that would put that person at risk.
Right.
The universal principle in the Bible of the sanctity of life, how important it is, and we want to preserve life. And so, again, that helps us not to put others in harm's way and hurt them or hurt ourselves. So all of those things, are rich wisdom. When we were looking at this pandemic as an organization, clearly it hadn't manifested itself in most parts of the area. But we thought in March 2020 that it was the best thing to apply a Bible principle, and that was the shrewd one sees the danger and conceals himself. And as a result of that, many are alive today, and our organization as a whole and our congregations are thriving.
And that is the thing, and I certainly want you to speak more to your theme, powerful by faith, but there are those who talk, and speak in a way that almost like forked tongues. We reference the biblical principles are universal, but is it a challenge in not only interpretation but application, even across the religious divides?
Well, when you look at the Bible as a whole, and when you take all 66 books and you believe in your heart that they're inspired of God, the Bible begins to interpret itself. Jesus reiterated two of the most important principles of the law. He summarized the law in these two principles. Love your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, you think about those two principles, and it guides us in our decisions. It guides us in the way we treat each other. Love. It guides us in not doing something that would hurt our neighbors. It guides us in how we live our lives as whatever God tells us to do, we will do. The principles of the Bible we will follow. And so it really has helped us live a better life. And even though many have interpretations of the Bible is very simple. It's clear. It helps us to see the direction to go in. And it helps us, too, to understand the times in which we're living.
Well, certainly, I think now more than ever, we need to have that faith, and we need to be, reminded that we can be powerful by faith. Where, we're seeing across the globe, Europe included, easing of restrictions. We're seeing more and more attempt at bringing life back to some semblance of what it was before this whole thing transpired. Your decision to make it virtual this time around, any particular reasons for that decision?
Yes. First of all, the decision was made in the height of the pandemic, in the fall, winter. And so we knew that even if a vaccine was going to be available, that the raging fire of this pandemic. Now, it is certainly...
All right. We are speaking to Mr. Robert Hendricks, and he is joining us by, internet link over from New York as part of the 2021 Jehovah's Witness Convention, Powerful by Faith. Mr. Hendricks, are you able to still hear us? Okay. Sometimes the connections are there. Let's just pause quickly, take a break, see if we can reconnect, and then rejoin him after. Always great to learn more and share more, and together we are indeed stronger. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
At Subway, we know a meal isn't quite complete without a side, and that's why we're introducing waffle fries. Subway's waffle fries are oven-baked softness with extra crispy edge, giving a satisfying taste to be enjoyed as is or in any of Subway's dipping sauces. Order waffle fries as a side item for $2 or make it a meal deal. Subway, eat fresh.
Freedom, Cayman Rack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer. The 20th Annual Talent Exposition of the Arts is here.
Are you ready for some talent tonight?
Presented by the New Self-Help Community Foundation. Coming to the stage Sunday, July 25th at the Hartwell Theater. Don't miss. Awesome performances by Liana DaCosta, J.C. Patrick, Rico Rolando.
Yeah, she twerking off a band and I'm about to make it dance, yeah.
Radiance Dance Studio, Mariah Praise, Dream Chasers K-Man, James at Anglin and Son, SI, Center Point Dance Studio, and UCCI Dancers. Part of the proceeds from the Talent Exposition of the Arts go to support the John Gray High School Music Department. Prepaid tickets at Funky Tang and Winners Circle Sports. $10 or $15 at the gate. The 2021 Talent Exposition of the Arts, Sunday, July 25th at the Hartwell Theater. Gates open at 5:30 p.m. Show starts at 6:30. Get your tickets today. The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by Cayman Medical Supplies, providing quality pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and consumer products to healthcare providers, retailers, and ultimately the patients at a reasonable rate in a friendly, caring, and timely manner. Cayman Medical Supplies is located at number 93 Smith Road, Windward Center. Telephone 949-6211.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us via our internet link from New York, Mr. Robert Hendricks, as we talk about the 2021 Convention for Jehovah's Witness, Powerful by Faith. Mr. Hendricks, are you still there?
Yeah, sure am, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, thanks. Sometimes you know how these technology sometimes wants to rule, and just needs to be reminded that it's a good servant but a bad master, all right?
That's right.
Hey, if I might do, just, maybe take another few minutes of your time as we talk to people about it, and maybe start and share with us how, the public and everyone can access the convention this time around.
Well, it's exciting to be able to say that jw.org is available in around the globe in 1,034 languages. And so all somebody has to do is go to jw.org, go to About Us, or scroll all the way down. You'll see the convention, or go to About Us. You'll see the conventions. You'll see all the highlights, the program. And you can download the convention that we've had already. We've had 2 segments of the 6 over the last couple of weeks. We'll have the 3rd segment released next week, and our congregations will be handling or looking at that on the weekends, sharing that together. You can also go to JW Broadcasting on Apple TV, Roku TV, or even on your device, an iOS device or Android device. Go to JW Library, and you can download it right on your phone or tablet. And so it's all free. No need to put your name in or email address. It's something that is really provided as a service and a gift to all of our neighbors.
Mm-hmm. This is where I think, as you referenced, the notion to draw closer, to rely on our faith, but also to have that resource. And many people, unfortunately, are still confined to their own spaces, to their own homes. So at least if they can have an internet connection, as you mentioned, they can go to gw.org and be a part of it, but also access the resource library.
Indeed, yeah. So we're hoping that people do that, and we want them to do it safely. And so if they gather with vaccinated family, that's one thing. But it really is going to be now their choice as to how they They view it. They can even view it in their car on their device if they want to. So it's available everywhere.
Convenient in your own space and the like. I know you reference again, people taking the injections and the like and the notion. We were interested, as we spoke to Mr. Virus earlier, on JW's position on taking this.
Well, vaccines are a personal decision. All medical decisions are personal, right? So the Apostle Paul said, we will all carry our own load. And so, but we base our decisions on principles. Number one, we're grateful for medical science and the advancements in medical science. We have said since the early 60s and mid 60s that vaccines are something that can help, but also are personal decisions. So we don't advocate for them. But at the same time, as an individual Jehovah's Witness, we look at those Bible principles, the sanctity of life. Or we want to preserve life. We want to live for our God, not die for him. And the second is we love our neighbor. And so taking a vaccine, if you choose to do so, is consistent with those Bible principles.
And as a listener, you do reference people need to be informed and need to look at it as such, as a personal decision. And we are grateful, as you referenced, to the advances in technology, in knowledge, and the freedoms that people have to assemble and worship, even that once didn't exist. So we give thanks for that. And as I listen to you, I keep harking back to the theme, powerful by faith. We read and we see by faith, all that has been accomplished, not just from the biblical perspective as we read the books, but even in our own lives. That level of belief in this particular environment and time that we're facing. What words of sort of encouragement that you can share with the listeners to remind them to, it's not, by our works, but by faith. It's not, by our own sort of goodness and greatness that we have the promise of hereafter. But we need to have something to live by. And share with us, if you would, that encouragement so that we can draw closer and not be so despondent.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that the reason why we share the Bible with people, the reason why we knock on their door or call them or write them letters, the reason why we make this powerful by faith convention available to all is because we have a firm belief and faith, by the way, in the Bible's ability to guide us even now. And so there's two things that I think of in answer to your question. One, living by Bible principles will help us now. It helps our lives. It makes for better families, better employees, better husbands, better wives, better children, better citizens,
better society.
and a better society. Exactly. So stick with it. Don't give it up. Don't give up on the principles that can make your life better. At times it may be the harder road, but in the long run, it will be the easier road because it's the right road. And the second thing I'd say is, when you look into the Bible, you can see beyond this tragic event that we're dealing with. You can see beyond the problems that we're facing in this world, and you see that God had a purpose in the beginning, and you start to reason. And when you get to know who He is, you realize He hasn't abandoned that purpose. He still wants to bring this globe into a paradise. We often think, us in the States, we think of the Cayman Islands as being paradise. And indeed, from a physical perspective, they are beautiful, right? But think about an entire world that is physically, emotionally, spiritually a paradise. And that's what we are hoping and praying for. And that faith gets us through the hardest times.
I'm hoping that as people listen, that they will appreciate how we can draw strength from each other and strength from the Word. If I may then ask, though, looking at as we see witnesses move about in our communities, and last year in particular, and to date, the limitations on freedoms, the limitations on movement, the restrictions on freedoms, and seemingly the conditioning that many people now are become increasingly accustomed to standing distances, not socializing, the fear that is in them. Any particular sort of challenges that may have placed on your congregants, whether in your area or just generally across, 1,034 languages, as it were, as you're global, since this whole thing started?
I think you're absolutely right about fear. I think that all of us are facing a different level of fear, a different kind of fear than we've ever felt before. And that truly is something that is beyond our control. But the Bible tells us that these time and unexpected events will befall us. And you probably know the beautiful scripture in Ecclesiastes that the swift don't have the race, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you think about how this befell us and changed our lives. And I think we all kind of feel there is no normal on the other side of this, that it's a different normal. And I think through the last year and a half, our congregations and our congregants have tried to create a new normal that had warmth, that has warmth, that still is personally attentive, that connects people in a way that may not be physically all the time or ever, but is still spiritually and emotionally connected. Our congregations are small, and we keep them small for a reason, and we break those congregations up into even smaller units that are pastoral groups. And that's really powerful, because those pastoral groups make sure that they know every single name and face in that group, and that during this period of time especially, we know what they're going through. And that connection keeps you sane. That connection makes you feel loved. That connection helps you see God's hand, even in those small things that people are doing for you. You're seeing his generosity, and he's alive to you. And that needs to stay alive. And that's all about community. It's all about the community that we live in spiritually. And in many ways, as Jehovah's Witnesses, we're closer than we ever have been before.
That's the thing that is so inspiring. And we realize that may have been the greatest challenge that we are facing, that disconnect socially. We're no longer able to interact and celebrate, to mourn, to worship, to witness. But as you said, by their fruits you shall know them. So you're reaching out to your smaller groups and maintaining that connection. For that changed society that we're experiencing, and maybe just ask of you for a few more seconds, and a reminder of how to access, the convention. But for that changed world that we've seen, where reportedly there are untold profits being made by the mercenaries or the merchants, whatever the term we ascribe to them these days, and people are exerting greater power economically and politically, but yet, otherwise seemingly helpful people are standing in the bread lines, unable to find food. People are being, very cognizant that they're not that far away from, being destitute. That must weigh heavily on the individual, the emotion, their psyche, even their sense of, faith.
Well, you quoted a beautiful scripture, Jesus' words, "By their fruits you will recognize them." And when we look at his words that he gave to his apostles on the final night of his life as a human, he told them something in John 13:35. He said, "By this all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love among yourselves." Now, as you also quoted James chapter 3, and you recognize that love isn't telling your brother, be warm and well fed,
right,
and then going off and doing nothing about it. So we have an obligation to one another as Jehovah's Witnesses, as our congregants. We take that obligation seriously. This is our spiritual family, and we cannot feed the world. There's billions and billions in the world, but we can assist each other. And I think during this pandemic, and I've been a Jehovah's Witness for more than 50 years. In this pandemic, you've seen with Jehovah's Witnesses a different type of needs filled. We've always been a loving organization. We've always had loving congregations. But now we were displaying this love in a very tangible way. We considered it our ministry of relief, humanitarian aid. Immediately in March 2020, we set up 16 disaster relief committees all over the United States, including the Caribbean. And those disaster relief committees were in touch with local elders and congregants and congregations and what we call circuit overseers. And they made sure that our brothers and sisters have had what they need. And so when you see that, as bad as it is, even if you're down to your last morsel in your refrigerator, and then you see a box of fruit and vegetables on your doorstep, or you see your brothers come with what you need, you realize that God hasn't left you, right? This is the manifestation of his love comes through his people. That's what Jesus said, and that's what they're seeing. So in some ways, their faith, powerful by faith, their faith is stronger than ever.
And I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's the one thing that is sadly missing, that love. We think of, not only sadly, when our brothers thirst, we no longer even offer them water, we didn't offer them the vinegar.
Well, Jesus said that if you offer just a cup of water to one of the least of these my brothers, you have offered it to me.
Well, maybe it's times like these that we need to be reminded, and maybe seek greater humility as we want to be bestowed with honor. But then, if our leadership, whether in our homes or in our schools or in other wider communities, elected, appointed, or otherwise self-anointed, in absence of love, how do we grow? Maybe it's the seeking of faith, huh?
Well, when you really think about it, we were not created to be independent beings. In the world, we kind of treasure being self-sustaining, self-sufficient. But God made us to connect with others. God created us and designed us to be interconnected. And that's what a congregation does for you. It interconnects you with souls just like yourself, beautiful people who just want to do what's right, normal people, struggling just like you. And you can share with them emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And together, you're greater than the sum of your parts.
Amen. I appreciate that reminder. But then maybe one final thing, then I'll ask you if you wouldn't mind. You remind us how to, jump online and be a part of it and when it's like. But given the challenges imposed by governments, using legislation that in it has significant sanctions of imprisonment and fines if you don't abide by these new laws. We're seeing, in some cases, restrictions on assembly, however that is, for people to connect and to interact, even in the spiritual realm. What do we make of that?
Well, the Bible tells us that we subject ourselves to the superior authorities. Now, that's not an absolute subjection because, of course, our absolute subjection is to our Father in the heavens. However, when you look at some of the restrictions that have been put into place, there are other ways to worship. So the government hasn't stopped us. Not here in Russia. They're trying for Jehovah's Witnesses. In other places they've tried, but we can respect the laws of the government and still have robust spiritual discussions, have robust spiritual meetings, have beautiful spiritual fellowship with our brothers and sisters. Right. And we really feel like that we've been able to do that. Just as an aside, in 2020, Jehovah's Witnesses put out 33 new translations of the Bible, 33 new language translations of the Bible. In 2021, we'll put out 38 new translations or language translations of the Bible. We're busy with that work, and we're delivering that right to people's fingertips, right to their phones, we're printing still, we still print, right to the internet so that it's free. Jesus said you receive free, give free, and that's what we've tried to do. And I think those are the types of things that really are meaningful in people's lives.
Yeah, I appreciate that encouragement, and I guess it comes back to what we shared earlier, that FEAR, that fear, that thing that we are now afraid. It's so much condition that we no longer sometimes go out to seek medical help and end up with a heart attack and dead. We don't come and assemble and worship and read the scripture. So maybe we'll find that faith once again, huh?
Well, I think that hopefully we've never lost it. And I do think, though, that this convention, Powerful by Faith, will help all of us. Jehovah's Witnesses or not, we're not perfect and we're not immune to the problems that we're facing, but it will help rekindle that faith and bring us back to the foundation of what has gotten us through and what will continue to get us through to the other side of this pandemic.
All right. Well, if you would be so willing to share, for those who want to be a part of the 2021 convention, Powerful by Faith, how and what's the best way?
Well, the easiest way is to go to jw.org, go to the About Us tag, or scroll down. You'll find conventions. You can download the program, and you can also stream or download the current conventions that are available, the first 2 installments.
Mm-hmm.
The third is coming next week. You can also find a local congregation. There are 3 in Cayman, and you can actually view the convention together with them if you'd like to, virtually, of course. Or you can download it on your device, jw.library on Android or iOS system. Or you can do a JW broadcasting on Apple TV, Roku TV. So there's a host of ways to get it. It's all free. It's all accessible. And we encourage everyone to take full advantage of that.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Hendricks, for sharing with us. And, maybe we'll be reminded that, it is by our fruits that we'll be known, and it's not our efforts and our work, But I really appreciate not just the strong sense of spiritual counsel, but the nourishment that you provided.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate being here, and the opportunity to meet you is tremendous.
Thank you. Likewise, man. And blessings to you. I trust that we will be those great stewards and examples so others can draw closer, huh?
Let's pray we can.
All right,
Thank
amen.
you.
And have a wonderful rest of today and into the weekend. For those who listen, it is by faith that many of us actually live, and sometimes we feel lost because we've lost our faith, but it's not far away. Seek and ye shall find. Let's pause and take a short break with the good company of Ms. Susan. We'll take some open line until 1 o'clock, and after the headline news, Ms. Anik Jackman, the Executive Director of the National Trust, will be in the studio. We're going to talk to her a bit more, so stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
When you're tight on time and budget, but big on flavor, Subway's Meal of the Day hits the spot. Enjoy daily meals on classic sandwiches like tuna, Black Forest ham, meatball marinara, and more. Starting at $6.25 for 6-inch meals and $8.75 for footlongs. You can get Subway's Meal of the Day. Enjoy a different sandwich on a different day for the same price. Mix it up with cookies or chips or waffle fries for the same price. Subway. Eat fresh.
Want your kids to gain social skills, independence, self-confidence indoors? King's Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp is the solution.
Make memories.
Learn new skills and life skills.
Activities include
basketball, football, dodgeball,
arts and crafts,
squash, drama,
kids aerobics,
bowling, and much, much more. King's Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp will be held from July 6th through August 6th. July 6th through August 6th. Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. Camp includes all activities, 1 lunch,
and 2 breaks.
For more information, call 946-5464 or email
kings@candw.ky.
Your one-stop facility for fitness, recreation, relaxation.
Census 2021. Census. Come on, get ready. Census. Starting 10th of October 2021. Census. Papa, are you ready? Census. Mama will be counted. Census. Children and toddlers. Census 2021. Census. Information is secret. Census 2021. Census. Starting October 10th. 2021. Census 2021. Census. Census. Census.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. It is Open Line, and at 1 o'clock after the headline news, Ms. Anik Jackman, the Executive Director of the National Trust, will join us. We're going to have a chance to chat about a new partnership that they're sort of engaged in. We want to hear more from her, but hey, why not take the opportunity and share your thoughts with me? Let's go to our phones. Good afternoon, welcome, thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, my good friend Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, man. How are you today?
I'm fine.
Good to hear from you, man. I hope your day gets better.
Yes. Dwayne, when last election happened, yeah, I mean, we demonstrate support the independent government, and we have confidence in all of them. We try to see what they will achieve, what they change from the bad government was before the BPM government. But I noticed that the victory leader of the opposition, I call him victory because the real leader of the opposition is Mr. McLaughlin. In my opinion, in the backstage, he tried to get credit for whatever the Minister of Education doing, as he thinking that Ms. Juliana is doing what she doing according to PPM agenda. But the reality is she joined the independent, so now she is independent. Whatever achievement the Minister of Education do, it's credited to the independent government, not credited to the opposition PPM. And this fact needs the leader of the opposition, victory leader of the opposition, to know, because he trying to do a statement, trying to claim credit for the BPM for whatever, and then he trying also to claim credit for financial issues this government doing. I think this is not time for him to campaign. It's still all the way to 4 years. That's just my answer to the leader of the opposition, victory leader of the opposition. The second issue, Dwayne, the issue of police in this country. I mean, I don't doubt there is a lot of police officers doing a great job. And we're not here trying to discredit the police or anything. But we need to start think 1,000 times where to bring those officers from. We need to look at the level of human rights evaluation in the country those police coming from. The Jamaican police, for example, have a bad name in the international in evaluating human rights. There is a lot of cases being filed. I'm member of Jamaica for Justice since I lived there, which is a human rights organization. We have a lot of cases against the police, that the police killing innocent people for no reason. So if we look at Nigeria, the same thing. There is evaluation of the human rights in Nigeria, and I am a human rights activist, and I write about different countries in my Twitter account, in my Facebook account. Mostly in my Twitter account, I am active about the human rights in different countries. So we need to look where we bring our police from, because this is very important. And I think this government going forward need to start thinking about every year sending like 40 Caymanians, good students, to a police academy. So by 5, 6 years, 10 years, we have the amount of police we need, Caymanians, well-trained. They have a bachelor degree in police. They are experts. They have the good, proper training. When you send those 40 student Caymanians, number one, you don't need to bring foreign police officer anymore. That's one. Two, you have officers who graduated from 4 years of studying policing. They are very professional. They are very civilized how to handle and talk to people, not the way how some of the Jamaican police in Cayman. And this is very bad for me to say sometimes, but sometimes we have to be bold enough to speak the truth. And because if we want a better society, a better Cayman, we need to start to think about training Caymanians, sending them to study 4 years. If this government decides they start send 40, 50 people to study, the government pay for their study, they come back, you have 50 well-trained professional Caymanians police.
Right. But let me ask then, when you talk about sending them to a good, or a police academy, where would you suggest that the government send those possible candidates?
Best police academy in the world is in England. There is a best police academy in Europe. There is in America. We can send them anywhere. There is good police academies everywhere. Even in my own country, from all the Arab world, they come to my country to study policing in the best police academy in the world. So we need to see, no matter what country they go to, matter is we need to start Caymanize the police. This is very important. I want to see in the future that our police, from the chief to the smallest one, are Caymanians.
But I think that from what you share, and I recognize we're just about to go to the news, but you echo sentiments publicly shared by the former Northside member, Mr. Miller, who said we identify those individuals and we send them off for similar training, so that even if it's, as you mentioned, from the Commissioner of Police all the way down. So maybe it's a good thought to consider, not just for policing, but maybe that's a good place to start. Or we can look at healthcare and education as well, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned healthcare. The Shati Hospital promised us to train Caymanians nurse and doctors. We never see that.
But recognize though, if I might though, recognize though, if you got 100,000 people in the society, and let's just use it for easy number, and you probably got 10,000 Caymanians, right? Yeah. As you referenced them, statistically, it's going to be impossible to train up any large number in any capacity. So, yeah, that's going to be a logistical challenge, isn't it?
Every year, Dwayne, we graduate 800 to 1,000 students, correct? So we can find 200 to be police. We can find 100 to be nurse. It's female and male. So we can find them. The numbers is there.
Right.
High school graduation is the effort by the government, any government, no matter which government. Any government want to take this idea I'm gonna support them.
Yeah, man.
I want to see this society more safe, more right, more better, because my child will grow here.
All right. There you go, man.
So, Dwayne, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You're most welcome. And as the caller shares, we want to make the society that much better. So let's work together. We'll pause and take a short break. When we come back, more Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Government reported the results of 531 COVID-19 tests on Wednesday. All came back negative. So far, more than 95,000 vaccines have been administered locally, and about 65% of the population getting fully vaccinated. Turning to international news now, at least 42 people have died in Western Germany, and many more are missing following severe floods, police say. At least 6 others have died in neighboring Belgium, and the city nearby has urged all residents to leave. It follows record rainfall in parts of Western Europe that has caused major rivers to burst their banks. House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy is expected to meet with former U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday as the California Republican is considering which members of his conference to appoint to a special committee tasked with investigating the deadly January 6 riot at the U.S. Capitol. Trump announced in a statement Thursday McCarthy will be meeting with him this afternoon at Trump National in Bedminster, NJ. Much to discuss. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden and German Chancellor Angela Merkel are set to meet in Washington on Thursday in what is likely the European leader's final appearance at the White House before she steps down from her long-held position this fall. The ongoing dispute between the United States and Germany over a Russian gas pipeline called Nord Stream 2 is expected to play out between the two leaders in the Oval Office on Thursday, according to senior administration officials. Climate change, COVID-19 vaccines, Russian cyber attacks, Ukraine, and showing up their democracies are also topics on the agenda, an official said. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And an opportunity now to find out, what's going on in our country, what the great things happening over at the National Trust. And join us is the Executive Director, Ms. Nick Jackman, together with the Environmental Programs Manager for the National Trust, Ms. Catherine Childs. Ladies, thanks very much for coming on board. More and more we see the importance of what is happening around us. We see the impact that we have on each other, but also on the environment. And I think maybe for the first time for many of us, we're actually realizing that our efforts are meaningful. We can do something, and it has a lasting positive impact. So we're maybe becoming good stewards. Hopefully through your initiatives like this that we want to share with our listeners, we can see how we can share. So Sandeep, welcome and thanks for coming up.
Well, thank you very much for having us. We always love to come on Talk Today and speak to everybody in the community about what's happening with the National Trust. We really love for people to come out and volunteer and talk with us and work with us because we have such great programs, one of which we're talking about today. And this particular program is focused on the environment, but I always want to emphasize that we have it's almost 2 pillars underpinned by education. So environment is one, and then the work that we do from a historic perspective, for the built heritage is another pillar, which is just as important. And then, as I said, underpinned by education, because everything we want to for the public to understand why we do it. We want people to recognize that the environment and our historic properties are living, breathing aspects of our world. So fascinating. Just being in the National Trust, I'm learning so much. Even in the car coming today, talking with Kathy, and she's telling me of the things that glow in the dark when she goes out and just looks.
That's usually my face. That's good.
No, but she was telling me about scorpions.
Yeah.
And so again, every time I'm learning new things every day. And that's what we want for our community, to get really excited about these things. Because when you're excited about what what you have and what you're a custodian of, then you don't have to have, fights and discussions about protecting and conserving, because people are just already invested in it.
Yeah, you understand, through education, your impact, you also understand the impact of this thing on you. And when we think of climate change, for instance, and our built heritage, how many times, we may look back to a photograph of a house and it's no longer there. But sometimes it's not a house. It may have been a particular wall that was erected, but through time, it's been displaced. Some would use a different word, but a tree. And how is that affecting things? But climate change and the environment, we may complain about it. Less water in some places, is hotter seemingly now than when it was when we were 5 years old, as it were. But this new partnership, to tackle climate change. Share with us. How did it come about? And tell us more about it.
Well, I'll set it up a little bit of the background, and then I'm going to seg to Kathy to talk a lot about it, because it really has been a vision and a passion project for her. And interestingly enough, when I started, I got to coming on the tail end to be able to kind of ink the partnership. But this had started years ago, I think, under the former executive director, Christina Pineda. So, again, we appreciate the work of just through the years to make this partnership happen. And we feel that, when you talk about climate change, our Caribbean states are extremely vulnerable. But, we also have to be active participants in what measures we can take to try to protect ourselves as best as possible, and what sustainable programmings we have to have in place. And people have been talking about carbon offsets for a long time. I came through tourism, and that's something that you hear people talking about. There's a lot of gray areas in terms of understanding of it. But what I really appreciate about this program is that how it's tied through the National Trust in terms of mangrove protection. So I guess, Kathy, if you want to talk a little bit more about it, because as I said, it's been a long time coming.
Right. Well, Kathy, yes, definitely. I mean, because we realize the offsets that take place in other jurisdictions and the carbon credits, as it were. But help us understand further what we're looking at for the Cayman context.
Sure. I think first, just to describe a little bit more about what offsetting is so people understand it. So we all have emissions that we're responsible for, from flying or driving our cars or our electricity use. And the first thing you should do when you want to have less of an impact on what's happening around the world with climate change is to reduce those emissions as much as you can by using less electricity, by driving less, by buying an electric car if you can, all those things. But it's not possible right now to reduce your emissions to zero. The only way to do that is to take those emissions that you can't reduce and offset them in some way. And that means that you are helping to pay for a project that wouldn't have happened without your funds. And it could be emissions reduction or stopping an emission from ever happening. So it could be from renewable energy project, or it could be what we're doing here, mangrove protection, because mangroves are like the best ecosystem in the world at protecting and holding holding carbon for essentially forever down in the soil. So it's the best ecosystem for this, because not only do they store so much carbon, but it's so safe. So you might protect an area of rainforest for the carbon that's stored away in the trees, but that can be lost in a forest fire. 90% of the carbon is stored away in mangroves in the soil. So no matter what happens with those trees, 90% of that soil or more is, that carbon is still protected. So it's fantastic. And people are offsetting with projects around the world. It's required in a lot of places. And what's brilliant about this, from my perspective, is that Cayman feels the benefits. From the atmosphere's perspective, planet's perspective, they don't, it doesn't really matter. As long as that carbon's coming out of the atmosphere or never gets emitted, it's great for climate change, for slowing it down around the world. But from our perspective, the fact that those projects are happening locally, that is so great for Cayman. We get to benefit from it. We get to both mitigate climate, but also help us adapt to it by having those mangroves there to help protect us from storms and absorb all that extra water that we get from these big rainfall events and all these other things that mangroves do.
Right. And as you referenced, mangroves, we appreciate in terms of storms, its protection. But for the offsets, is it only in this context for the Cayman Islands, or could a company do something here now and offset it for credit in another jurisdiction?
There are plenty of offsets around the world that you could get involved in, right? You could protect a rainforest in Brazil, or you could fund like a landfill methane collection thing in New York City. But any company anywhere in the world, doesn't have to be a local company, anybody, or even if you wanted to offset your flight, you could do that. And if you choose to do it through us, through Island Offsets in the National Trust, then all the money and the benefits are felt locally.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's okay, maybe just so people who may be somewhat familiar or even not at all, let's say a person is going to travel from here to, say, London. That's a route that we take sometimes. It's not that far, but there is a bit of emissions. They want to offset that. How would that work? And, well, what would be the cost?
It's a great example. So there are calculators, there's plenty of them online, and you can put in there where you flew and what kind of airplane you flew on, and it can tell you exactly how many tons of carbon you were responsible for emitting for that flight. And then once you know that, if you come to us, then we can put that money directly into the National Trust Land Reserve Fund for mangroves specifically, and then 100% of that money goes straight into land conservation.
Okay, so then to continue that for the individual, they would then, let's just say it's $100 or $1,000 that they keep up to. They bought their ticket, they made their travel, the amount of carbon as emitted comes up to a monetary value of $1,000. They'll come over and make a donation of that amount for that money to be utilized, in this case, for the mangrove project.
Exactly.
So they're sort of...
Yeah, and it's not very expensive. So a flight, for instance, is that's just a few tons of carbon that's been emitted. And right now, the international price for carbon has a range, but what we're charging is on the high end of that range because we're in the Cayman Islands. So it's $40 per ton. So you can probably offset your flight for less than that. And it's affordable for the individual, and yet for a business that wanted to make a significant contribution, and what Apple's done this, by the way, with a rainforest that's in South America, and they did a legacy donation. So they looked at their carbon footprint for more than just a year. They looked at it for 10 years, and they decided to offset that with this mangrove protection project that's occurring in South America. So, I mean, this is already happening, and why not take the benefit and have it be felt locally in the Cayman Islands?
And I'll be guided, by you, not only in making sure that my memory, as we recall correctly, but actually the science. I think in the state of California, a couple of decades back, when you guys were very, very young, if I were here, they had a significant problem with pollution, and they installed scrubbers. They did a number of different things, and we saw overnight a marked improvement in their air quality. And I was seeing now, even so, much greater improvement over time. So it shows that if we do something, it can be beneficial.
100%.
Right.
And I do a lot of talks and stuff about this subject, and it can seem depressing when I talk about what we've done and what's expected, but from my perspective, it's not. It's empowering, because if we're responsible for having created this problem, that means it's something that we can fix.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what about the concern then? We look at men who are sometimes in their minds logical, they're critical thinkers, sometimes they're just promoting, stimulating discussion. Go back to that same discussion in other countries as well, but other big multinationals, they'll be sort of ascribed this, well, they're paying to pollute. They can do this, and then they can write a check that would assist something else. So any concerns, and how do we mitigate that, if any? That this could be another way for people to not only appease their conscience, but they can, through carbon offsets, pay to pollute.
No, I mean, that's a very valid worry, and something that's I think something that we need to make sure doesn't happen. So that's why I mentioned that the very first thing that companies and individuals should do is to reduce their carbon emissions as much as possible first. But because you can't get it to zero, right? You can't not fly occasionally, or drive a car or use electricity in the Cayman Islands, right? So you're going to have a carbon footprint. And the only way you're going to be able to do anything about that is to support a project that takes that carbon out of the air to compensate for it. Yeah, exactly.
All right. All right. When we come back from this break, maybe you can discuss further with us and people listening. We can do something, not just to appease their conscience, but make a noticeable impact. I use the state of California as an example because I think it's very evident what it was like a few decades ago. Look at what it's like now. It didn't happen without cost, not just of time, money, but a commitment by people. All right, let's pause and take a short break, and when we come back, we'll share more. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Captain Roberts Clifton Foster, 1890-1968. Captain Bertie Foster was born and raised in Cayman Brac. He married Huldah Bodden, and to the union were born 7 children. Captain Bertie went to sea at an early age as a cook and obtained his captain's license in Jamaica in 1921. He later owned cargo ships. He was a pioneer in the Brac hotel business, opening the island's first hotel, Buccaneers Inn, in December 1955. He was a civic leader who donated his time to supervise the construction of the airport on Cayman Brac. His late years were spent entertaining his hotel guests and talking on his marine radio to his other ships. Captain Bertie will be remembered for his leadership in the development of Cayman Brac and his contributions to humanity and the community.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And it's good to know that where we live, we have excellent indoor as well as the environmental air quality. But the things that we can and thankfully are trying to do to improve it. And as we talk about this new partnership with the National Trust and that offsets to sort of tackle climate change, we have the Executive Director, Ms. Anik Jackman of the National Trust, together with the Environmental Programs Manager, Ms. Catherine Chaz. Now, island offsets, maybe a couple of questions. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's your baby, Ms. Catherine.
Yes. So, my background is environmental science,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very concerned about climate change. I did my postgraduate certificate on that, and when I learned about carbon offsetting years ago, I thought, why don't we have projects here in Cayman that will benefit the Cayman Islands? And the thing about mangroves that makes them so special is that they store so much of that carbon in the soil,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fantastic. But what happens when they're developed
Mm-hmm.
and the trees are lost? You don't just lose the trees, which are taking out carbon out of the atmosphere every day, but all of that soil underneath is turned over. They have to do that to make it stable for building. And when it is exposed to the atmosphere, all of those carbon molecules that are in there are oxidized and they go back into the atmosphere. So it's a double whammy with mangrove development. So it's super important that we protect them here locally. And it just seemed like a great way to be able to achieve that is to bring in this sort of innovative financing model with carbon.
Yeah, I think many people are seeing what we can do, even if, take for example, some case I studied. I think I saw, I guess years ago, but just not recently. A lady, she tried consciously to see what her footprint was like, and how much even household garbage, and she was able to reduce it down, but not eliminate it completely, but even a significant reduction through recycling and the like. But what also are we doing relative to, making our air that much cleaner? We see the pollution sometimes just from industry, from motor vehicles, from our own activities, and we think it'll dissipate. So I have two questions. One from our listener, and then the other. There was an editorial in the Compass sometime a long time back, that spoke to Cayman being effective too small to make a difference, or carbon emissions, is insignificant, wouldn't make an impact. I found that to be unfortunate, to put it. Today, fast forward, I think we're of a mindset, but you guys are the experts. It's reading that editorial today, would that be critiqued or would it be championed?
Well, I think it's important to remember that we could take that viewpoint about everything. As an individual, why should I care? Why should I bother? As an individual, I'm not going to have any impact on the global factors about what's happening. But collectively, we all have to make a change in order to make a difference, a real difference. So we all have to do that. And also, it's true that Cayman's very small. As a country, we have very low impact. However, each one of us as individuals, we're right up there with the United States and other first world nations as far as what our individual footprints are. We all have our own cars. We all, use AC all the time. So we're each one of us as individuals is part of the problem because of our lifestyles. So it's important that we take responsibility for that, and and make some changes. And this is a great way to do it.
So, and you just as you said with that lady, it's little steps that you can take. The fact that you pay a little more attention to recycling, you carpool if you can, all of these little things add up and contribute in a significant way if all of us are doing the little things.
Right.
And then again, in the Caribbean, we keep looking for help from outside and international sources, and sometimes we also have to play a part in doing what we need to do to protect ourselves. As I said in the beginning, we know that we're vulnerable, more so than maybe some other places. When it talks about climate change, all of us as islands, we have to be concerned. So, there's no excuse for us to not to try.
Exactly. Well, in that vein of trying and preparing for today's discussion, I reached out to someone. He didn't give me permission to share his name because he's got charted enough as it is. But suffice it to say, he's one of those that are very much in tune and will conduct sort of experiments in different ways to see whether what is being said is actually a reality. And so, in looking at our impact, our individual impact on the environment, we live in houses. Thankfully, for some of us, we believe we enjoy the creature comforts with air conditioning and what have you. And we have the automobile and we have all these things. So he's undergoing, he's giving me permission, an experiment now to measure, what his consumption based on his utility bills for this time period, and then what it'll be when he consciously turns off the AC in the summer. All right.
Brave. Some people will be like, what?
I maybe talk to the school a bit. He can do that because it's only him in the house now.
Okay.
So he takes the opportunity while even the pets are gone, right? But he lives in a nice place where there's good ventilation and breezes and stuff.
That's true.
And he's going to do some other things. And I'm not sure exactly how he was going to measure some of these things other than but he was a bit concerned. And this kind of leads us into this next sort of question that's coming in. Well, if his CUC bill, how will that be reflected in that the air conditioning's off? That's probably 70% of our bill, or a significant percentage we're told. How would that be reflected? He's bought a bicycle. He has the benefit of not having that far to work, being someone fairly senior in the company. So if he comes in drenched from the rain or sweat, who's gonna question him too much? Maybe everybody. But if someone was to do that, now he's going to go to the extreme for a particular reason. Hopefully, he will share it with us later. But not to go to that extent. If individuals wanted to consciously try to reduce their footprint, what could they do? And not just only to assist with offsetting, but hey, you know what? Maybe I can walk instead of driving. I can ride a bike instead of, any thoughts on that, Ms. Catherine?
Sure.
Ms. Anik? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything you can do to reduce your electricity consumption. So in our house, we, over time, switched a lot of our appliances to newer, more energy-smart appliances, and that made a big difference. We changed our old-fashioned light bulbs to the newer
LEDs.
Yeah, and that also helped a lot. We did we did the foam in the roof, for insulation. Thank you. And that also helps a little. All those little bits help a lot. Also, reducing how much meat you eat in your diet makes a big difference as well.
Even the food choices, right?
Right, and trying to make smart decisions as far as trying to use less plastic, use reusable things whenever you can, because it takes a lot of energy to remake something from scratch every time for you, right? If you're reusing as much as you can, that helps as well. But I also want to make clear that even though we all have a lot of power in our lives to make these changes, I think it's important that we all do that because we all have a personal responsibility to do what we can. I think one of the things that will make the most difference is if you pressure your government, no matter where you live, to make changes as far as to prepare us for that. And I was pleased to see that the Premier made a mention of climate resiliency and sustainability in his talk, because I think that we've come to the stage now to where all of us making little changes in our lives isn't enough.
Right.
We need to have governments really on board to change, the whole structure of everything, like to put in charging stations for electric vehicles everywhere, so it's easy for us all to have them. And we're lucky here because we have 0% duty on electric cars, by the way. You guys, everybody listening, should go out and think about getting an electric car because they've got lots of great new ones that are available, even a Ford F-150 pickup truck, an electric version.
Yeah. Seen it.
So lots of options out there, but I think that all around the world, not just our government, obviously, but all of them need to take it seriously and make really strong improvements and changes so that the rest of us can work together too.
Well, and I don't think we're going to have much of a choice too when we look at the generations coming up, because they're not necessarily going to put up with some of the things that we kind of have left in their wake. So we are seeing as well younger generations coming up who are a little bit more aware and who are asking questions and demanding a little bit more.
They're more assertive, more engaged, more involved.
Yeah. They want to see something that's more sustainable because they know they're the ones that have to deal with the mess.
All right. So this message came through right before at the break last. So as we're speaking to Anik Jackman and Catherine Chaz, we're talking about the partnership to sort of reduce to tackle climate change. How about that? With island offsets and the National Trust. We did address this at the outset, but let me just says, when did this idea of offsetting come about, and how does it work if not adopted by the majority? Question: am I responsible for paying, for example, my CUC bill and also to offset the carbon I consume through CUC? If so, well, why not CUC? Just happens that that's the reference there, but are you Anson, help us to explain that, Miss.
Sure. Well, I've been trying to work on this project literally for like 10 years. It's taken a long time. But I think that's because there hasn't really been it's taken a while for the world to kind of catch up and to make this more of a mandatory thing in some places. And it's also become what I've been encouraged at climate meetings, international climate meetings I've gone to, is it's not just about doing the right thing anymore. It makes a good business case. It's cheaper now to make these green decisions. And the CUC example is, that's a good, I think, example of why we need to get the governments around the world to start making institutional changes, because CUC doesn't have to do any offsetting, so they're not going to. That's why it comes down to the individual in this case to offset your carbon footprint that you have through CUC's energy bill. If the Cayman Islands said, okay, CUC, all of the carbon that you emit from the diesel-powered generators that you use, we would like to see you offset that through mangrove protection in the Cayman Islands. That would be really great. But that's not required at this stage.
But I also think too that we all, we're talking about the individual, but for anybody with a company or business listening, there's that element of corporate responsibility anyway. So we're happy because we've got a couple, at least one company right now who has looked at how they can offset. And so, for any companies or businesses out there who are listening, by all means contact us. Let's have the conversation to see how you can be part of this conversation as part of your corporate responsibility, and to say that you are part of the conversation on how we're becoming more sustainable in this time. So, it's the individual responsibility, as Kathy says, it's the governmental responsibility, and then it's our corporate responsibility as well. So I don't think anybody has an excuse.
Yeah,
that's right. And we have gotten a lot of interest from many local companies that are interested in offsetting their carbon emissions. And I also don't want to make it sound like CUC isn't a good partner. They do a lot of good work in the community, and they support many national trust projects.
Well, where's the utility of one store or the other, whether it's an airline or whether you're a mass transit operator, or whatever form. We are emailing. There may be even some of us as individuals, like this chap that I referenced. He understands his lifestyle causes him to just be in a vehicle constantly. One day it clicked, wow, I'm in a car a lot going about work, but that's the way I get to work and do stuff. Well, could I not do that? Well, and he's talking about effectively offsetting. So it may be only $40 for the month because he only emitted one ton of carbon. But what if, that's the other question maybe we can ask when we come back from the break, to look at the other programs and the great things that happen in National Trust. But how do we as an individual, if we wanted to do an audit of an organization that we work in, if we were doing some of the quality assurance, could we audit ourselves to see, well, what is my carbon footprint? Could we do that? And if so, how? If that's a question we could ask, maybe get an answer. May help us to appreciate our impact. Some of us understand how many calories we consume. Some of us just consume calories and don't even want to ask. So let's talk about that when we come back. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
During July and August, CUC's subcontractors, UMC, will be erecting poles and stringing power lines between 8 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. on Fridays and Mondays, and 6:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays on Rex Crichton Boulevard in Prospect. Motorists are encouraged to use Shamrock Road when possible. For more information, contact 949-5200 or email service@cuc.ky.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Puritan Cleaners.
Puritan Cleaners would like to remind customers the closing time for all stores is 5:30 p.m. Savannah Countryside, 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Elgin Avenue, 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Puritan Cleaners, 337 Eastern Avenue. Drive-through, rain or shine. 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Now 10% off prepaid on $20 orders and up. Household and wedding dresses remain at standard offer. 10% off on prepaid orders. Drop off and transfer for pickup from any of the 3 Puritan stores for your convenience. Call 949-7104. Puritan Cleaners. You feel good when you look good.
Inaja Productions, in association with Cash Wiz Cayman, presents Cash Wiz Cayman Kids Got Talent Show at the Line Center on Saturday, July 17. Start the summer right and come out. Support and cheer on our kids as they show off their God-given talent. Showtime 5 p.m. Tickets are available at Cash Wiz Cayman and at the gate. Admission only $15. Part proceeds go to Feed Our Future. So join us on July 17 and experience an evening of talents. Special guest performances by recording artist Rico Rolando. I wish I still loved you. Steel Pan solo act Ruby Polita and CKGT 2018 winner magician Joshua Cowell. Cayman Kids Got Talent is sponsored by Cashways, CUC, Health City, Ministry of Financial Services and Commerce, People's Choice Groceries, LED Lighting Engineering and Design, KPMG, Seaport Marine, Butterfield Bank, the #1 shoe shop, K-Cool Ice Cream, CL Construction, Cellular World, Radio Cayman, Breeze FM and Inaja Productions.
What do you do if you have to go to a shelter? To help you safely prepare, evacuate, and shelter while protecting yourself and others from COVID-19 this hurricane season, here's some tips from the Public Health Department. If you must go to a shelter, be ready to protect yourself and others. Practice social distancing of at least 6 feet from others. Follow public health's preventative actions. Wash your hands with soap and water, often if possible, or use hand sanitizer, cover coughs and sneezes, and wear masks or cloth face coverings. Get your COVID-19 vaccine when eligible. Avoid sharing food and drink with anyone. For more guidance to update your emergency hurricane plans due to coronavirus, visit www.caymanprepared.gov.ky. This message is brought to you by the Public Health Department in partnership with the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And as we talk about new partnership between the National Trust and Island Offsets to tackle climate change, we have the Executive Director of the National Trust, Ms. Annick Jackman, and make sure I wrote it down properly, the Environmental Programs Manager for the National Trust, Ms. Catherine Childs. Conversations like this sometimes can cause people to be very pensive, can inspire them and really promote great discussion. But then there are many who, for whatever reason, still a bit unsure of things, and then probably because in their lifetimes nothing of any meaningful thing will happen. Maybe this is the time to look back as, well, what has happened thus far? Is it hotter now because we have less trees? Do you have less, public open spaces to enjoy because you have more development? What are the impact on your quality of life, on your environmental sort of air quality? If we don't do something now, I think, Ms. Annick, as you shared, what will future generations think of us? But worse, what is it going to be like for them?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be very interesting. I mean, when we look at we're in hurricane season right now. And, it's just been making the rounds throughout the Caribbean. Barbados had Hurricane Elsa, and that's the first hurricane they've recorded in over 60 years, right? We are all feeling the effects of it. It's a wake-up call every summer.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's getting hotter. There are people who are telling you it's getting hotter. We're seeing less rainfall in times where we would traditionally see a lot more rainfall. So whether we are paying close attention to it, where it's kind of penetrating, or it's just subconsciously, we're like, it's a little different from years past. Yeah. I don't think that we can avoid it. I think, though, that, the conversation on climate change, it's always brings up different emotions, and there are people who are skeptical about the whole conversation and have been for many years, but something's happening.
Yeah.
We just can't pretend that it isn't happening anymore, just based on what we're observing right here in Cayman. So the idea, though, that we're helpless and we can't do anything, I think we need to go beyond that now. There are, as we've been saying and reiterating, little things that we can do. I think sometimes it's just that we don't want to give up because it seems so hard to give up certain things. Right. But when you start, so for my family, for example, when you would think, okay, recycling is going to be this big deal. And then you start recycling, and now you can't imagine not. Now you're going places and you're like, where's the recycle bin? Because that's the way you've been. And it doesn't take long to train yourself in that.
It is having that willingness, but also having the accessibility to do it. So for those of us who may have lived or have families who live in other jurisdictions where a lot more is recycled than what it is here, maybe when we're there for an extended period and we come back here, where I can't recycle this, or they've advanced their recycling. My recyclables, I could put them back in the cabinet and they're absolutely clean because we wash them, right? The question is, are we using more water and energy to produce this recyclable sort of end use? But let me then ask from that perspective, understanding the impact of the environment, things are changing, understanding that our climatologists are now saying, well, maybe next year the hurricane season won't be June the 1st, it may be May 15th. What we saw in 2004 into 2005, Mother Nature decided, well, you know what, guys, you have a date, but I'm going to go into the new year with a bang. And we had to exhaust the other alphabet. So with that in mind, could an individual, if so desirous, want to say, well, what is my impact? You know, we monitor our food for different reasons, but I want to know, you know, how much is my drive in my television watch and my activities for the day, for the week, or in the words of Third World, the month of the year, can we find out that? And how?
Yeah, sure. There are different calculators that exist online. One of my favorites called carbonfootprint.org, and it's pretty detailed. You can put in there exactly how much energy you use, and if you know where you are, like how much CUC emits per kilowatt hour, you can enter that. And if anybody wants to know, I can tell you. And how many people live in your household, and it has lots and lots of questions. How many times a week do you eat meat? Do you ever take public transport? You know, all sorts of details, and at the end it tells you more or less what your carbon footprint is for the year. Or you can do it just for a flight if you prefer just to do that. And then if you want to offset your carbon footprint, they have ways that you can then go into different organizations that have different projects around the world. But what's cool about what we're doing is, of course, that project benefits us locally as well. So it's slowing down climate change, climate mitigation, but it's also helping Cayman get ready for the inevitable effects of climate change as well.
And as you shared, I think it would probably surprise many of us how much impact in a negative way we are having on our environment. You think about it, I drive to work every day. Yep. You know,
true.
My car is fuel efficient. You know, but what does that translate into? Little things make you think, huh?
Yes, and if anybody wants to learn more, of course, they can check out the National Trust's website or Island Offset's website to learn more details if they're interested in offsetting. And again, or if they just have questions and they want clarification. So, people can check out that website that Kathy shared to see if they can get an idea of their own carbon footprint. But, we're hoping that people see this as a benefit, and not just people, when I say people, meaning our local community, but, visitors overseas who understand these types of programs and love Cayman and have an affiliation with Cayman. This is an opportunity to give back. And all, so we're hoping that this becomes a program that, people can see internationally as well. Cayman is really trying to do something in terms of carbon offsetting. Are there humps and bumps in the road? Yes. Are there going to be lessons that we'll learn? Yes. But if we don't start, then we'll never know the potential of what we can do as a community. So that's why we're really excited about this partnership. And, kudos to Kathy and the Island Offset, her board, etc., who have gotten the company. And, of course, kudos to former ED Executive Director Christina for having the talks with Kathy so that we could get to this point to ink a partnership. And hopefully we will see this grow. And the community will embrace it. Yeah.
And this is where those partnerships can have a lasting impact. We can enjoy the benefits now, but future generations as well. I know the National Trust has amazing programs on throughout the year. They have their own summer events, but they have opportunities for us as well.
Well, normally we would do a camp. This year we're not doing a camp, but we are doing summer activities. And there are three options. One can be at the Blue Iguana facility. The other is at Mission House, where you would do kind of a traditional cooking class or demo. And then the third is actually at Dark Park in South Sound, and that's birds, bees, and trees. So actually, the kids are going around. They're going to see a little bit of our insect collection, and then they're going to be in the park a little bit. That, if anybody wants to learn more, again, contact us at the National Trust. Call us or email us, or you can look on our website, nationaltrust.org.ky. So that's kind of what we're doing with the kids in the summer, because I know everybody's looking for activities, and not everybody's doing camp. So we're running those, specific days a week, just for a couple of hours. The other thing, that we have coming up will be, some of the other activities we have coming up, because, we have many.
Yes.
We're hoping to come back out with our Governor's Conservation Award. So the public can look out for that as well. We're going to soon release the information on that for nominations. And then, of course, we always do our call out for people to come and become a member of the National Trust. We have activities on all 3 islands. So you can be, whether you want to be in the district of East End or if you're in Little Cayman, Cayman Brac, doesn't matter. We'll take your membership and get you involved in all the great programs that we have. We just released the Blue Iguana Gardens initiative, so people can get excited about that. And then hopefully behind that, we'll have some more work that we'll be sharing with the public on the conservation program and the historic program. So, we're trying to do things so that every month, maybe a couple times a month, people hear and see what we're up to. And again, just as you can become a member, you can also become a volunteer. So the volunteers help us a lot with some of the work that we do. We have over 24 sites. So when you think of historic sites and our environmental sites, we always need volunteers to help us with the, maintenance, the upkeep. Always looking for corporate partners to help sponsor some of the work that we do, because it's a lot of work. But one of the things we want to emphasize to the community is that we don't do it just for us as a small group. We do it for everybody in Cayman, because most of what we have, the public has access to. Whether it's the nature trails and reserves, most of them, the public have access to them. That's what they're there for, to be able to enjoy. The conservation programs are so people, again, can, years from now, see a blue iguana, see very specific plants and trees. So, we're not the ones 10 years from now telling children, oh, when I was young, we used to see these. So everything we do is so that there's we can reduce the when I was young.
And this is why I commend you for coming on, and hopefully we can continue to share so that people appreciate that it's not just through our words but our actions, and not just through our time, but it's also our talent and our treasure that we contribute and make things much better. I commend you for this. Hopefully we'll pick it up, and as an individual we'll see that we can make a meaningful impact.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us, and for everybody in the community who supports us, and we really appreciate it. It helps to make what we do worth it all.
Together we make it better, right?
That's it.
All right, Scott, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, I'm going to pause quickly and take a short break, but when we come back, we'll talk today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
The HSA Specialist Clinic has relocated to a new, modern, state-of-the-art facility at Smith Road Center to offer you a better patient experience. Receive care from top specialists in chiropractic, complementary and alternative medicine, neurology, ENT, urology, pain management, and more. Our orthopedic and telemedicine clinics remain at the Cayman Islands Hospital campus. Please remember to bring your own face mask when visiting any HSA location. Visit our website, hsa.ky, to learn more. At the HSA, you matter to us.
Introducing the 35th President of Rotary Central Cayman Islands, Ms. Corleen Goodman Hoptroff. Our new President Corleen and her team will lead us through the new Rotary year, July 2021 through July 2022. Another year of community purpose and fulfillment. We, Rotary Central, look ahead knowing that with your help, the best is yet to come. President Corleen leads us as we join over 1.2 million Rotarians across 35,000 Rotary clubs around the world under a new Rotary International theme, a new banner, Serve to change lives. Serve to change lives in our community, Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman. Serve to change lives, yours and ours. Knowing this, the best is yet to come.
The 7 a.m. news Monday through Friday is proudly sponsored by CG Britke Insurance, Health, Pensions, Life, where people come first.
According to the Standards in Public Life Act, which of these categories of people are required to file a declaration of interest? A. Members of Parliament. B. Chief officers and deputy chief officers. C. Government department, section or unit heads and their deputies. D. CEOs of statutory authorities and government companies. Or E. Members of government bodies of statutory authorities and government companies. The answer is all of them. For these persons, declarations must be submitted between 1st of July and 30th of July 2021 using the new online portal. For more information or to see the full list of individuals required under the Act to submit a declaration, visit standardsinpubliclifecommission.ky.
Things just got a bit hotter on Island. Come in today and order the new spicy Korean subs at Subway. They're sweet, spicy, and especially satisfying. Stop in and try the pulled pork with spicy Korean sauce, or the chicken with spicy Korean sauce. And you can message WhatsApp at 929-4658. Order online or use Let's Eat or the Bento app. The spicy Korean subs at Subway in 2 flavors, extra saucy and extra spicy. Subway, eat fresh.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. We are a non-for-profit member-centric plan with a democratically elected volunteer board of trustees representing all sectors of the Cayman Islands economy. Chamber Pension has an all-in expense ratio of 0.72% over 16,000 members, $430 million in assets under management. We were the first multi-employer pension plan approved by the regulator in the late 1990s. And today, we are still strong, secure, and are here for employees and employers alike. If you would like to join or request further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us. It is an open line for the remainder of the program, and with your acquiescence, we're going to exit a bit early. We call it 2 p.m. and it's a Thursday. Some gifts come early. It doesn't have to be Christmas. And tomorrow, as we were planning our monthly COI saying, that's going to be the next Friday. We wish Mr. Alvin speedy and healthy return to us so that we can get on to the Conk 2. So that won't be tomorrow. God's will, I'll be here nonetheless, but we will have the opportunity to share with you next Friday. Now, we're going to end at 2, so give me a shout if you want to share your thoughts with us. And it is the summer, and as we just heard earlier, about the power of faith and, being powerful by faith, but equally hearing from our National Trust opportunity to look very closely at our individual, sort of carbon footprint, or corporate sort of impact, and maybe, from the public sector side, governments, here as well as everywhere, considering not just policies and legislation to ensure that we are able to reduce in a sensible, sustainable way our impact on the environment, to make it as best as possible so that we are leaving the land, if not in a better state, at least no worse. Now, it's not a case of appeasing our conscience only by offsetting, but it's by realizing that we all emit, a lot of unnecessary, sometimes even unwanted waste, but it is part of what we are and what we do. So maybe by paying and contributing and sponsoring a program elsewhere, in our case, the demand grows, but it may be somewhere else. The planet will thank us for it. So let's be conscious and conscientious. Let's be careful and considerate, cautious sometimes even in our conversation, but not to deny our ability to speak from an informed perspective. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. We invite you always to be a part of our ongoing discussion, and please join Mr. Art. Come tomorrow morning for the record. I think it's an engaging discussion. I always appreciate, when he has Mr. Steve Backfield on in particular, to get from him not just a sense of history, but an appreciation that things won't change unless we are prepared to offer up ourselves a great level of service and a great level of respect in order to make things that much better. Now, as you think about what today is like, and you think about what it was like a year ago, maybe you'll also think about what you would like it to be like a year from now. Now, a year is just a snap of the fingers, but with a proper planning and preparation, it'll come very quickly, and we'll be, sometimes worse off because we are ill prepared. But let's just only think about a year, past, present, or future. Let's think about a decade, and maybe even a century. Now, some of us will still be around, God's willing. Many of us have been long gone. But what will our impact and our legacy have been like? Maybe your actions won't lead to any statues being torn down, but instead, being celebrated even more because we were not only known to be good, but we actually did good, and people still benefit from it. Very much like, that endowment that funds education or healthcare or a personal private trust that generations can live on. Let your legacy, let your contribution be that, so that it helps others today and well into the future. Even our actions and our thoughts and our deeds. So thank you for allowing me to exit slightly, before the appointed time at 1:30. But tomorrow, God's willing, we'll be right back here with you. And with that in mind, maybe we can find a way to not just have a conversation, but a conversation that leads to meaningful, positive change. Thank you, Ms. Susan. And to you, as you enjoy the afternoon, enjoy the music.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecasts, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advance notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your